There and welcome back to Boardroom Insights with me, Alan O'Neill. This is episode 2 of a 4-part series during the summertime of 2025, where I myself am in reflective mood, and I'm assuming that many of you listening are also in reflective mood. And when in reflective mood like this, it's a good time to take time out and stand back and look back in at our own business. And the part that I'm focusing on here in particular is proposition, which of course is step 6 of my 7 steps to profit. The upstream steps are North Star, culture, strategy, people, customer, and step 6 then is proposition. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where everything comes together in terms of the interactions with your customers at least. And remember I said in the previous episode, I talked about the 3-legged stool as a framework for helping you to determine what is your proposition. Because you need to think about your proposition in the broader context beyond just product only. Because your customers are judging you not just on product or the service that you're selling. That's what appears on the invoice. But the decision making that goes through the customer's mind to the point where they place the order and you give the invoice, there's a lot going on. And that's where the 3-legged stool framework is a superb way of shaping what that looks like. And of course, the answers to all the questions posed in this series is determined by where you see yourself in terms of your North Star, your brand positioning. I'm going to again give the example of the hotel. If you're a 3-star hotel, how the kind of fit and fixtures and menus and layout that you have in your hotel will be very different to imagine if you were a 5-star hotel and how you would go for a much more luxurious product. Same with your people and how they behave. So you get the point. The proposition is determined by upstream thinking around North Star and culture and strategy. But here we are on proposition. And this episode, I'm going to double down on product and look at what are the main considerations for you to think about in refreshing your product. Now, if I was with you for a few days and we're going to the top of the mountain and to come down with tablets of stone to shape your strategy for the next 3, 4, 5 years, we would go into so much more detail. This is a podcast, after all, and there's only so much we can talk about, but you will get some strong challenges and some hints and frameworks to give you consideration. And of course, we know that product is, while it's important, it's not the only thing. For example, if you were going to a dentist, you would be influenced by reputation in the first place, perhaps by location. And then when you arrive at the dental practice, you're going to be influenced by the look and feel of that practice. Is it clean? Is it pristine? Is it really, really attractive? Does the whole thing send a message of professionalism to you as opposed to a dirty, dingy, to make the point, extreme point, dirty, dingy, where you feel this isn't going to be a good experience? Of course, the 3-legged stool moves around at different phases of the customer's journey, at the buying journey. The place is the attraction in the first place, but then in the dental practice, the product is around maybe teeth whitening or veneers or crowns or fixing your toothache. I get that. But the fluctuation around a 3-legged stool, it will vary depending on what stage you're at. Place gets you there, but then the product takes over along with the people, because the dental practitioner, the hygienist, that relationship then becomes more to the fore because that's part of the product. So you see, this is not a clean, straightforward, siloed 3-legged stool. It does iterate on itself and overlap. But just for the sake of this episode, let's focus in specifically on product and see how we can make it really strong for you. Interestingly, I was doing some work with a fashion retailer in the last year, and we were helping them think about their merchandise mix. And we drew a 2x2 matrix. And the 2x2 matrix, picture this, the X and Y axis. On the vertical, we had price, high price and low price. And on the horizontal axis, we had fashionability on one side and classic look in terms of less about fashionability on the other side. And we got them to plot the various brands into that matrix. And it was quite incredible that they could see that they had far too much product range in the classic range. And particularly because in their DNA, the upstream considerations, they wanted to be seen to be a fashionable and luxury retailer. But yet, when they plotted in all of the brands that they were selling into that X and Y axis in a visual, impactful way, they could see they were missing tricks all over the place in terms of their focus just wasn't spread the way that it didn't reflect what they were trying to do. So look, there's so many tools out there. There's the Boston Matrix, the Ansoff Matrix, and many more that help you to consider your merchandise mix and your product positioning. But I'm going to keep this simple. It's summertime. So I am going to go through a checklist of things for you to think about. And this is focused essentially on the world of retail. Why do I use retail? We all understand retail. We're all buyers in our own right in different types of stores. And because we understand it so well, I am going to use retail examples. You've got to figure out, how does this apply to you? Whether you're B2B or B2C, it shouldn't make a difference. The categories, the prompts are the same prompts we would use when we're doing strategy, even in the oil and gas industry, believe it or not. So one question, first of all, is what categories of product do you sell? So think about this, if you're a department store, are you doing menswear, womenswear, beauty, food, etc., and all the different categories? You've got to think about what's right for you. If you were in the drinks industry, you might be looking at what are the carbonated drinks versus the non-carbonated drinks versus the energy drinks. If you were a dental practice, you'd be thinking about teeth whitening, you'd be thinking about crowns, you'd be thinking about veneers. Now, you might say they're all products. Yes, they are. But because there's so many different versions of veneers, so many different versions of crowns, they're a category. Same thing in menswear, same thing in womenswear. I myself, as a change management consultant for 30 years, it's only in the last 10 or 15 years that I tidied up my product range. Because honestly, in the early days, I would go into a new client literally with a blank sheet of paper. Yeah, I knew, broadly speaking, where I knew I could add value, but depending on the needs and the conversation flow, I'd respond with a proposal to match what the client's needs were. But that was hard for the client to understand. What is Cara all about? And honestly, it's only in the last, 10 or 15 years that I started grouping what I do into categories. And then that ultimately ended up in the 7 steps to profit. So yes, we do provide services around strategy and culture and people development and proposition and sales. But now they're meaningful because they're all coming together like in adjacencies. In the same way that in a department store has product categories, and the one product category beside the other is what's called an adjacency, and it follows the customer's flow of thinking. Well, we've done the same thing in our business, and I challenge you to think about what categories are relevant for your business. And is there an opportunity for brands within your business, or is everything invented by you? Is everything just developed by you? In my case, I'm using all of our own material. But if we were a department store, we might very well have Louis Vuitton and Chanel and Gucci and so on. But for your business, do you have brands that are relevant for you, or is everything own label effectively, or private label? And that's okay if it is. Make that decision to yourself and ask yourself, are you on the right track? I also want you to think about price architecture. And here I'm getting at good, better, and best. For example, if you go to, let's say, a middle-of-the-road department store and you want to buy a saucepan, well, you've got choices around basic brands like Stellar, Prestige, and Meyer, for example. And within that, the department store has a selection of saucepans at a good level, in other words, entry price level, and then mid-price level and high-price level. And that's good business because it gives them a broad assortment to capture their customer and not lose a sale. If you're a luxury department store, you'd also have good, better, and best, but at a higher price level. Your good level in luxury department store might be very similar to the best in the middle market department store, but you're still following the good, better, and best thinking. Why? Because you're broadening your category mix and you're giving your salespeople ammunition to sell to your customers. So what's good, better, and best in your business? Again, if I'm consulting, I might offer two choices to a customer. One that is at a basic entry-level price and another at a higher price. What can you do around clarifying exactly what is good, better, and best in your assortment? Flagships and category killers are another consideration. In the world of department stores, a flagship destination is like having a category or a brand within the department store that they can say that they really own that brand, that they've given it such a great amount of space, authority, conviction in the way they execute the brand in store. Typically, for example, in luxury department stores around the world, they have Louis Vuitton. And Louis Vuitton would often be considered a flagship destination. So, in its own right, it draws customers to that store. And a category killer is something slightly different. A category killer is where you look at a category and you say, right, we're going to do lots of brands within this category, and we're going to be the authority and really own that category. So I'll give you examples from my Selfridges days. I remember doing a strategy one year and we were exploring what can Selfridges say that it owns in the marketplace. In other words, be the best at, be the full authority and have the best ranges, the full collection. And several answers were put forward, by the way, but one that stands out in my mind is ladies' shoes. And at that time, as a result of considering around that, looking back at past records in terms of sales and margin achievements over previous years, the growth in ladies' shoes, I mean, it's always in growth, of course, as a category. So with that helped Selfridges make the judgment that they should really get behind women's shoes and expand the department, expand the ranges and become a destination. So if flagship can be a destination, so also can category killers. We were working with one store in the Midlands in the UK, and we got them thinking about this, flagships and destination as a destination, and also category killers. And I remember at that time, they were very strong in homewares, and they decided to get into a deeper relationship with Le Creuset. Le Creuset is that brand of cookware, the heavy cookware, and it's a fantastic brand, lots of colors and quite a luxurious product. And this particular store decided to really nurture the relationship with Le Creuset. They spoke to Le Creuset, they expanded the space within the store, and they became the destination in that particular region for Le Creuset. So if any customer out there was thinking about Le Creuset, then they would immediately this particular store would come to their mind. That's turning a particular brand into a flagship. And then within that same store, we also looked at categories. Where could they really do well with categories by owning a category? And at that time, this particular retailer was already very strong in candles. And candles was a growing market and still is. So they decided to own candles. What do I mean by own candles? They decided to really expand on candles, develop the full range from different brands of good, better, and best. So that became a destination within their store. And again, those two considerations, flagships and category killers, became great footfall drivers. If you take that thinking and apply it to your product range, what can you say that you own? Now, you may not be in the business of bringing in brands, that's okay, but within your product collection, what can you say you own? A dental practice might say they own teeth whitening, or they might say that they own hygiene, but they might, or a drinks company might say, well, we own energy drinks. What is it that you can say that you own? And by doing that, by expressing that kind of thinking, maybe can you double down on it even more? Exclusives and newness. We are living in a world now where people, customers, are maybe their attention span is much lower. They respond greatly to newness. If your product range is the same product range 100% that was in place 5 years ago, you're probably out of date. Because innovation has taken over. And I'm not talking here about just the AI kind of innovation. I'm talking about innovation in products, in ways in your customers' behaviors. So if you haven't refreshed your product range and delisted the worst selling ones and really doubled down on where the growth categories are, again, you're missing a trick. So exclusives is an opportunity for you to differentiate from your competition. That's one thing that I appreciate that's hard to do now. But if you are own brand, private label, that is easier. And again, I'm going to say B2C, B2B, take inspiration from this because it'll work for you too. Are there opportunities for collaboration? So in my business, we do collaborate with clients where it is not our particular expertise, but because we know that we are so well connected with the client, they trust us, they believe us, they want us to help them, that if I bring in other experts for things that are not in our skill set, then and under our brand at the same time, the client respects that, but we're also being seen to be a solution provider to the client. So long as it's not something completely alien. For example, if it was IT or cybersecurity, I wouldn't go there because that is so alien to my product suite. But at the same time, I might refer the client to where they might go, but I wouldn't get involved because it just doesn't mix with what I do and what my company does. Where are your highest margin products? Which of your products are the highest margin? And are you using that to your advantage? Because we all have to accept there's going to be a mix. Like in the retail business, food has a much lower margin than luxury fashion, for example. But that doesn't mean a department store doesn't sell food. They do, because it's strategically helpful for driving footfall. And we all do things like this with low margin products to drive footfall or to complete our offering. But is it clear? Are you certain about which of your products are highest margin? And are you getting behind those products? I mean, the retail grocery store, they know they're going to put their highest margin products at eye level. And those that are less margin, they put at lower level or higher level. That's as old as time. But we've got to think the same way in our product categories too. Do you and your team know your best and worst sellers? Now, we all have data these days as to back that up and support it, but I'm not just talking about data here. Do you have a feel for it? Do your team, your full team, know what the best sellers are and also know what the worst sellers are? I mean, worst sellers, if it's physical product and you've invested in worst sellers and you didn't invest in them as worst sellers, but they turned out to be worst sellers, well, they're sitting there using up your money. You need to make decisions fast about getting rid of them. You mightn't get your full margin, but turning it back into cash is critical for you. Now, your team can help you with that, provided you communicate it, provided you tell them. So we're not only talking about obsolete merchandise or merchandise that's going to go out of date. We're talking here in general terms. What are your best sellers? What are your worst sellers? Because they are best or worst because your customer has judged them that way. Your customer has got behind your best sellers. So there's a feedback in that for you. Your worst sellers are telling you we don't like them. So that's feedback, but make sure we're talking to our own people who are interacting with our customers. Even the van guy who's going out delivering, he's hearing things. So we need to make sure we are really taking on board and learning to understand. When did you last walk through your stockroom to look at the piles of bad sellers, even though your data mightn't tell you every nuance? For example, if your data doesn't tell you which colors are best at this point in time, you might be missing a trick. So take your best and worst sellers seriously, go and audit them and see what can you do about delisting your worst sellers or at least mitigating them. Or before we leave it, are they worst sellers because you haven't got behind them? Is it because, again, in retail terms, because they haven't been put on display but kept in the stockroom? Well, that's kind of bonkers. So what I'm saying is do an audit. Do an audit on your best and worst sellers, get your people involved, communicate, and make sure that everybody understands what they are. Again, linked to high margin versus low margin. And are there promotions you can be doing from time to time also to help you maybe to just drive footfall, linked again back to your category killers and flagships? Now, that's it in terms of my checklist. And as I said to you, this is a short, snappy episode just to get you thinking about your product mix over the summertime. Clearly, if we were working with you, we would double down and use all sorts of matrices, X and Y axis, and other research studies to determine exactly what your competition are doing. But this is just a light touch. But remember, this is all about helping you to build your USP, your unique selling proposition. Because by focusing in on product and on people and on place, you will find opportunities to shine, to differentiate yourself. Your USP doesn't have to just be one thing only. It's the collection the combination of your differentiation under product, people, and place, which will aggregate up to a USP for you. Now, I want you to think about, in the meantime, until we see each other again, what are your flagship products, or at the very least, your category killers? Is that thought process even relevant for you? Don't just dismiss it because I'm talking retail. Honestly, the amount of times that I have discovered retail disciplines are so transferable across to other sectors, including B2B. So don't dismiss it. How do you balance your core range with innovation? Because everybody's talking about innovation, and particularly now with AI is going to accelerate that. To what extent are you bringing innovation into your product mix and challenging the status quo and not just relying on your bestsellers of old? Because the risk is that competitors will come in with new things, and that the shiny stars from the competition could interrupt you, and then you could find yourself very quickly becoming less relevant to your customers. So you've got to introduce innovation into your thinking around product mix. Are you overextended in any one category? And this goes back to the whole mix that I described earlier. So if you do have several categories, are you pulling them all together in a meaningful way? And how are you responding to your poor sellers? What are you doing about them? First of all, ask yourself why. Don't just assume they're poor sellers because customers didn't like them. It could be your own fault that they are poor sellers in the first place. Maybe poor marketing activity, maybe poor merchandising, maybe poor presence on a slide deck. Maybe the salespeople are not convinced about them. Maybe the salespeople are selling their favorites. Again, I'm asking you to do a study. Don't make the assumption that customers don't like them. And the last thing I want to ask you, just as a thought, is your pricing architecture. Have you considered your good, better, and best pricing architecture? Do you have that breakdown? Have you thought about your different pricing in that way before? Good, better, and best. Because having that breakdown and thought process, provided you communicate it to all of your salespeople, that helps them to upsell. Because if you have good, better, and best, well, when your salespeople are selling, I would say they should always be aiming to start around the middle rather than low down at the good level. They should start talking to the customer at the mid, working to the high level, good, better, and best. But at least they know that if the customer, through an objection, lets them know that something is too expensive, they know that they've got to fall back to the good level, the entry price level. You see my thinking? Having that good, better, and best is a good starting point to help you curate your mix, but then don't stop there. Make sure you communicate that to your people so that they too understand your thinking behind this good, better, and best, and then train them on how to sell. Don't start with a good level. Unless a customer walks in the door and gives you a price that they want, that's fine. But if they haven't indicated price up front and you've done your various consultation questions to get an understanding of what they're looking for, you want to try and aim towards the mid to high level first, knowing that the entry level is a fallback. Now, I'm going to stop there. This is it, just as I said, just for summertime thinking and to accompany your summertime reflections. Let's leave it there. And next week, we're going to double down on people. And we're going to focus in on specifically how your people can help you to differentiate in the marketplace. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. Most businesses aren't failing because of bad ideas. They're just stuck because great ideas aren't landing for them. The culture says one thing, the strategy says something else, and the customer is caught in the middle. That's why I created the 7 Steps to Profit. It's a practical business framework to solve that and to help you join the dots. It's not just another off-the-shelf solution. It's a proven transformation framework that joins the dots for you across culture, strategy, leadership, customer, and day-to-day execution, and with the tools and the structure to make it stick. This is backed by 30 years of frontline experience as a change management consultant and real research that isn't just theory, it's traction. Our support is also enhanced by our own organization health assessment, and that will give you clarity into your business in a way that you've never seen it before. So if you're ready for real alignment, measurable progress, and execution discipline, visit our website, 7stepstoprofit.com. That's the number 7. Or check in and make a booking, and one of our team will have a chat with you. That's it. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. Most businesses aren't failing because of bad ideas. They're stuck because great ideas aren't landing for them. The culture says one thing, the strategy says another, and the customer is caught in the middle. That's why I created the 7 Steps to Profit, a practical business framework to solve that. It's not another off-the-shelf solution. It's a proven transformation framework that joins the dots across culture, strategy, leadership, customer, and execution, with the tools and structure to make it stick. Our support is also enhanced by our own organization health assessment to give you clarity on what you need to work on. If you're ready for real alignment, measurable progress, and execution discipline, visit 7stepstoprofit.com. That's the number 7. 7stepstoprofit.com and book your no strings discovery call.